Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, I'm going to be going over my AFL 2023 official practice matches preview. The AAMI Community Series is not too far away, and that means I'm going to be previewing every game of the AFL 2023 official practice matches. Alright, so the AFL season is not too far away now, and this is the AFL club's last hit out before the season starts. Now, every team is going to be participating in one of these games, and this does follow the AFL structure. 4 20-minute quarters, and that is it. Meanwhile, the week prior, they were either playing intra-club matches or a unofficial practice match, which kind of did mean the AFL team would play 4 or 5 quarters and then the reserve team would step in for the last couple of quarters. But this week it is AFL team best 22 full official structured match. So let's go ahead, hop right into things. First game is Hawthorn versus Collingwood at Utah Stadium. And versus Geelong, the Hawks, despite that first passage of play, other than that, showed no hope. They didn't show anything really to be excited about this year. Utah Stadium, they are a different side. I feel like at least last year they could beat lots of sides down at Utah. So they beat Brisbane down there, for example, and they showed up on a couple of really big occasions like Easter Monday. However, this year for the Hawks, they lost over 1,000 games of experience. They've kind of kicked into rebuild mode for mine, and Collingwood were disappointing enough against Carlton as well, but I feel like in this game they will be the better side. Still showing a little bit last week versus Carlton, they did end up losing though, but I still do feel like this week versus Hawthorn, even though it is in Tasmania, I still feel like Collingwood will get the job done by, I don't know, I'm going to say about, let's go about 55 points, I reckon. I reckon it'll be a big win for the Pies, and that's probably a bare minimum as well, as about 50-55. So Fremantle versus Port Adelaide's the next game, and believe it or not, these two sides are very disappointing in their unofficial practice matches. Now, Fremantle, after 4 quarters, trailing the Crows by 11 points, and then lost by 72 once the reserve kicked in. Port Adelaide, they lost both their matches to West Coast, their AFL and their reserve game, and they showed a little bit against West Coast. They did show a little bit. Jason Horne-Francis actually played pretty well, so he was definitely their shining light in that loss. But both sides are going to be really looking to bounce back. Port Adelaide, we know their start last year was horrible, and Fremantle, well, at times last year they looked out of place, and at times last year they looked pretty good. So this is going to be a really interesting clash. I feel like the winner here will be Fremantle. I think they will bounce back from last week. But to be completely honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Port Adelaide to win. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a game to really go over that 30-40 point margin either. I feel like it'll be a close win for the Dockers. We'll say 5 points, but I don't know about this one. Both sides could bounce back this week. It could be a really interesting contest, or it could be a one-sided affair. So next game, probably the most interesting of them all, Brisbane versus Geelong at Brighton Homes Arena. Very late start, this one. Very late start. But look, I feel like personally, this is going to be the game of the round. It's two sides which are probably in premiership, obviously in premiership contention more than any other sides. I feel like these two sides could be battling it out on grand final day, and I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a curtain raiser for the AFL season as well, is this match. Now, look, I feel like this is a 50-50 game. It's going to be a really close game, I reckon. I couldn't see it going over 20 points either way. I reckon Brisbane for me, just because I feel like they'll have a better year than the Cats, but both these sides did show a lot of promise last week, but I do feel like Brisbane will be the better of the sides. As you could almost say, a little bit of a mini upset, but look, this is a real mouth-watering clash. So next game, St Kilda versus Essendon, Friday at RSEA Park, and St Kilda last week were extremely disappointing versus Melbourne. Now, I'm not surprised, however, because it was against Melbourne, and they've obviously put themselves down as a premiership contender as well this year, so I'm not surprised by that, but they'll definitely be disappointed. I don't really feel like anybody showed any signs of promise. Filippo did have a couple of decent moments as well, though, so I feel like he did show a bit of promise. Essendon, on the other hand, made a big upset over Gold Coast, a finals contender this year. And I think Brad Scott, his reinvention of some players like McGrath being one of them, is going to be quite important this year. I do see these two sides being very, very, very close on the ladder. Probably on the same amount of wins and losses. It'll just be percentage, which will probably split them up. But percentage could be very even as well. These two sides will meet for the Saints' 150th anniversary clash at the MCG in round 3 on a Saturday night. Which I also think that'll be a really good contest as well. Especially after what Essendon showed last week. So this is going to be a really close game, I reckon. Closer than what we all initially thought. I think some of us thought the Saints would run over the top pretty comfortably. But I feel like Essendon are right back in this. This is a 50-50 game. I'm tossed up. I'm still going to go the Saints. I'm going to say Saints by 10. I feel like they'll bounce back. But don't be surprised if Essendon win. And I wouldn't be surprised if Essendon would have blown them away either. Sydney versus Carlton is the next one. Which one side, Sydney, had a very poor week last week versus Brisbane. And Carlton, on the other hand, had a better week. Now, this is at Blacktown International Sports Park. I think this one will probably be a close game. But I think I'm leaning towards Carlton. I think Carlton did show a bit more promise last week. And I think the thing that everybody got caught up with last year is Carlton showed a lot of promise in these preseason games and in the first 10 rounds of the year and then dropped off. Will they drop off again this year? Not sure. But yeah, you'd be thinking and hoping if you're a Carlton fan that they don't drop off after such an impressive start 2 years in a row, could you? I think they will win this though. I think I did originally tip Sydney, but no, I think I've got a little bit of faith in Carlton this time to get the job done and actually prove it against a really big opponent that they can get the job done. And yeah, I think this is the statement that they need to make right here. I think the Swans though, they need to bounce back as well. So 50-50 game as well, but I think Carlton will get the job done. So West Coast versus Adelaide, and both these sides last week were very, very, very good. So this probably does turn to a 50-50 game. West Coast, they look to be bouncing back pretty well. Their win against Port Adelaide was good. They looked stronger, they looked better, and they looked fitter. Some of their older stars actually looked back on track. And Adelaide, their younger stars, were firing in their practice match versus Fremantle. So this is going to be a real game of the improvers. And I feel like from where I first saw these teams a couple of weeks out from the official practice matches, I think now I see them closer. I think the Crows will still win. Obviously, they are my team. Not going to be biased here, but I do think they will still win. I feel like they do have a younger core, which are going to really impress in this game. And let's just say margin 12 points, I reckon. I reckon they will get the job done, but I reckon this will be a good game. I think this will be a genuinely good game, and I wouldn't be surprised if West Coast were to upset win. But I do just think the Crows will be that little bit better. Giants and the Suns at Blacktown International Sports Park. Now, I don't know about the Giants. They did play a scratch match. I don't know results or anything like that from it. So I'm going to go with a stab in the dark here. I'm going to go ahead and tip Gold Coast. I just feel like Gold Coast, they showed that they can control half the game versus the Bombers and let them run over the top of them in the end. But just going back to where I feel these sides will be on the ladder, one in the bottom 4, the Giants, probably bottom 2, and one in that 9 to 12 mark, which would be Gold Coast. And I mean, they could make the top 8, not putting anything against them, but not quite sure where they'll finish, but probably somewhere 7 to 12 for the Suns. I just feel like they're the better side and should win. Dogs versus North is next, and North Melbourne did show a lot of promise last week versus Richmond. Harry Sheezel looked to be really good, which does definitely give him a shining light. George Wardlaw, hopefully he can play in this one. Be great to see him running out there, see what skills he's got. On the Dogs, on the other hand, don't know results from their scratch match, inter-club match, but I do still feel like they'll be firing and all that and ready to go. Now, the obvious tip here is the Western Bulldogs. I'm going to have to go the Western Bulldogs as well. Margin, I think we'll go 22 points. Now, I'm not quite sure whether the Dogs will actually win this game. North Melbourne could win, but I just feel like it's a safer tip going for the Western Bulldogs in this one. Melbourne versus Richmond at Casey Fields is the final game of the round, which is another mouthwaterer. Just based on where these sides could finish in 2022, Richmond have got high hopes this year, and Richmond could easily finish top 4. They could easily finish first. Don't think they will. They could also, on the other end of the spectrum, finish really low as well. Now, I think this year Richmond will probably be maybe 5th, 6th, 4th, third at absolute best. And Melbourne will be right in premiership contention after what they showed last week against the Saints. Richmond, on the other hand, they actually had to fight and grind out the win versus North Melbourne. So I think this is going to be a really 50-50 contest. I'm going to go Melbourne just because I feel like they probably in the past couple of years have been in a better position. And Richmond last week did look a little bit shaky at times. So there's my predictions. We'll run back over them again. We've got Collingwood, Fremantle, Brisbane, St Kilda, Carlton, Adelaide, Gold Coast, Western Bulldogs, and Melbourne. There's lots of 50-50 games, and I feel like these are all going to be games that are worth watching. As well, there's going to be plenty of key takeaways before round one, and interesting to see the club's last hit out. But yeah, I feel like most of these games are actually really genuinely 50-50, and it's going to give us a real good look at where each club sits ahead of round one. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Send you guys never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much. Bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.